It was a quiet afternoon when I returned, home from college. Stepping through the familiar door that carried memories of childhood, the house felt different, quieter, yet somehow warmer. My 19-year-old stepbrother Ryan greeted me with a casual smile, looking taller and more mature than I remembered. "Hey," he said, tossing a soccer ball from hand to hand. "Hey," I replied, surprised by how different he seemed. Our parents had left earlier that morning for a weekend, trip leaving just the two of us. We hadn't been particularly close growing up. I was 3 years older, and our lives rarely overlapped. But that afternoon, something shifted while I unpacked my things. Ryan knocked on my door. "Want to order pizza later?" he asked. I agreed, and soon we were sitting in the living room sharing slices and flipping through TV channels. The conversation flowed easier than expected. We laughed about old family stories, like the time we built a fort out of bed sheets and got in trouble for knocking over a lamp. "You were such a troublemaker, I teased you. We're bossy." He shot back with a grin. The banter felt natural, as if those childhood memories had never faded. Later that evening, I found Ryan in the kitchen washing dishes. "I got it," I said, stepping in beside him. "You're the guest now," he joked, but I grabbed a towel. Anyway, as we cleaned, we talked about his plans for college. He spoke about his dreams, becoming an engineer, designing things that could change lives. His passion surprised me. "I never knew you were so ambitious," I said. He shrugged. "Guess you were." Always too busy to notice the comments stung, but not in a harsh way, more like a gentle reminder that I'd overlooked how much he'd grown. The next day, I woke to find Ryan outside, working on his car. His sleeves were rolled up, hands covered in grease. He was focused, determined. I stood at the window for a moment, surprised by how capable he seemed. "You just going to stare?" he called out when he noticed me. I laughed and joined him for the next hour. He explained how the engine worked, showing me parts one didn't understand. I nodded, along impressed by how patient he was. That evening, a storm rolled in, knocking out the power. We lit candles and played cards at the kitchen table. Rain tapped against the windows, and the warm glow of the candles made the room feel safe. "I'm glad you're here," Ryan said suddenly. His voice was softer than usual. "Me too," I admitted, and for the first time in years, I felt like I truly knew him. Not just as my stepbrother, but as someone who cared, who listened, who had grown into a person I genuinely admired. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was comfortable as the storm rumbled outside. I realized how grateful I was for this unexpected chance to reconnect. "Since when you cook?" I asked, grabbing a plate. "Since someone had to," he said, with a shrug. Figured I'd get good at it. We ate together, and for once it didn't feel like small talk. Ryan asked me about my plans, what I wanted to do now that I was out of college. I admitted I wasn't sure, yet I'd spent so much time chasing a degree that I hadn't figured out what came next. "You'll figure it out," he said confidently. "You've always been stubborn, enough to make things happen." His words stuck with me, and I realized how much he believed in me, maybe more than I believed in myself. Later that afternoon, we tackled some chores together. Ryan insisted on doing most of the work, but I stayed nearby, finding comfort in the easy rhythm. We built somewhere between folding laundry and cleaning the patio. We ended up talking about relationships. "You still with that guy Ryan?" asked carefully. I shook my head. Didn't work out. He didn't ask for details, but I could tell he wanted to. Instead, he just nodded his loss, he said. And for some reason, that meant more to me than any advice could have that evening. We ended up watching a movie, one of those old action films Dad always loved. I noticed Ryan stealing glances at me throughout, like he had something on his mind. When the credits rolled, he finally spoke. "I remember when you left for college?" he said quietly. "I thought I don't." "No, I guess I thought you'd forget about me." I looked at him surprised. "Forget about you? You were always busy." He said friends classes. "I figured you'd move on and we just drift." I felt a pang of guilt. I'd never thought about it like that. I'd been so caught up in my own world that I hadn't realized how much distance had grown between us I didn't forget. I said, I guess I didn't know how to stay close. He smiled a little. Well, you're here now. It was such a simple thing to say, but it felt important. Like, no matter what had happened before, he still believed in Yusin. The bond we'd always had later that night. I found a note on my desk. It was from Ryan. Glad you're home. I smiled to myself, folding the paper carefully for the first time in a long time. I felt like I belonged not just as part of the family, but as someone Ryan genuinely cared about, and I realized I cared. Just as much the next day felt different, quieter, almost tense. Ryan seemed distracted, barely speaking during breakfast. I figured he just needed space. But something felt off by the afternoon. He was still distant. I found him outside sitting, on the porch with his phone in hand, staring at the screen. Everything Kay? I asked. He hesitated, added, then shook his head. Just some stuff. With school, nothing. Big, I knew it wasn't. Nothing after some pushing. He finally opened up. He'd missed a project deadline, and it put him at risk of losing his scholarship. I should have handled it better, he muttered. But now I'm stuck. You're not stuck. I said you're just overwhelmed. I can't fix it, he shot back, frustration breaking through. I've already tried. For a second, I didn't know what to say. He wasn't just upset, he was disappointed in himself. Maybe you can't fix everything at once, I said carefully. But you can start somewhere. He didn't respond, but I could tell he was listening. That evening, I brought my laptop to the table and started typing. Ryan walked past and stopped. What are you doing, helping you? I said. If you're going to give up, at least let me try first. He didn't argue. Instead, he sat down beside me. We spent hours rewriting parts of his project, tightening ideas, fixing gaps, and finding ways to improve. He was sharper than he gave himself credit for, and soon he was leading away, explaining concepts I barely understood. By the time we finished, his mood had shifted. The frustration was gone, replaced by something quieter. Relief, maybe even pride, couldn't have done it. Without you? He said you did most of it, I reminded him. Yeah. But you didn't let me quit that night? I caught myself thinking about how much he changed. The kid I remembered, stubborn, restless, always chasing something, had turned into someone who worked hard, cared deeply, and didn't give up even when things felt impossible. The next morning, I found him pacing the kitchen, nervous. I asked, Yeah, he admitted. But I'll figure it out. He smiled, but I know you will. He grinned back, and in that moment, I realized something. Important. Ryan wasn't just my stepbrother. He was someone I genuinely admired. Someone who made me want to. But better, too. Ryan's project was accepted, and I could see the weight lift off his shoulders. He tried to play it cool, but I knew how. Much it meant to him that night he seemed lighter, like he could finally breathe again. I owe you, he said. You don't, I replied. You just needed someone to remind you what you're capable of for the rest of the evening. Things felt normal. Again, relaxed, easy. I thought whatever tension had been there was gone, but I was wrong. The next morning, I found Ryan unusually quiet again. He barely spoke during breakfast, just stirring his cereal in circles. When I asked if something was wrong, he brushed it off. It's nothing, he muttered. But later, when I walked past his room, I overheard him on the phone. I don't know. He said it's complicated. I didn't ask what he meant. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it had something to do with me. That evening, we sat on the couch watching TV. But the air felt heavy. I finally turned to him. Did I do something? He blinked, caught off guard. What you've been? Weird all day. I said if I upset you, you didn't. He cut in quickly, then paused, like he wasn't sure what to say. Next, I guess I just didn't expect this. Expect what this? He said, gesturing vaguely. Us hanging out talking, actually. Getting along. I almost laughed, but he wasn't joking. I didn't either, I admitted, but I'm glad we did. His expressions softened, and for a second, it felt like something unspoken hung between us. Something neither of us wanted to say. Out loud. "You're leaving soon, right?" asked. "Yeah," I said quietly, "in a few days." He nodded slowly, like he was still processing it. "I know we didn't always get along," I said, "but I'm proud of you, Ryan." He looked at me surprised. "Really?" "Yeah," I said. "You've changed a lot in a good way for a moment." He didn't answer. Then he smiled, not his usual sarcastic grin, but something genuine. "I'm proud of you too," he said. "You always act like you're still figuring things out, but you've got it together more than you." Think the words caught me off guard, but I believed him. The day I left, Ryan walked me to my car. He stood there awkwardly shifting his weight like he wanted to say something more. "You're going to be okay," I said. "I know you are. You too," he replied before I could get in. He reached out and hugged me quick almost, hesitant. "Don't wait so long to visit next time," he muttered. I smiled. "I won't." As I drove away, I realized something important. We hadn't just reconnected. We built something better, stronger, and no matter where life took us, I knew that bond would always be there.